Vitaly, friends, I am Vitaly Portnikov. The Vice President with J.D. Vance received phone calls from the state and with the Ukrainian President in Ramsky, speaking from a statement about social boundaries. We are frozen, so Trump's so-called Plan for Yakov will remain 4 days, and so richly, and on the most critical comments. J.D.'s chair has anchor angles in the kingdom and before the sovereignty of Ukraine. And as it is, the yak is accepted for Russia as well as for Ukraine, and the wine is not yet unpacked. The mind of the Vice President from the received states pounced because of criticism of those who are unrealistic about the Russian-Ukrainian guilt, and I shot down the received states, and will help Ukraine look like a penny drop, and a serious sanctions vice on the Russian Federation could be from the war. To the Vice President's mind from the received states cannot complete diplomats and incompetent politicians with fantasies, and a task for realists themselves. Such a statement by the American Vice President can be tied to Tilky from his telephone conversations with the President of Ukraine Zelensky, and the fact that Trump's agrarian plan is overgrown, to the point of being harshly criticized practically by all representatives of the American political elite. To get not on the records of American congressmen and senators in the social regime, and on discounts. Beggarly and serious criticism. Moreover, both senators and congressmen, Republicans and Donald Trump, extremely senators and congressmen, Democrats, and veterans of the American political life are practically tabari and Republican and Democratic. And from the point of view, there are realists in the American political elite of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. You and I don't know ours. On discounts, Donald Trump did not get to the documents and actually sent to oral reprimands. In the hall, of course, it is still written in the plan, tied from his prize ration and legacies for his reputation. To the discussion on the VUA, its implementation. So does J.D. Vance. Overgrown, it is obvious that the curator of the process has not yet been Myra, then the Minister of the Army. With the staff received in the state, stayed at the Ukrainian table, and met with President Vladimir Zelensky in order to present him with 28 points of the peace plan, by the greatest political ally of J.D. And it is obvious that the American Vice President does not want to look, and not in me and richly. In the root keels of the Republican Party, J.D. Vance is already thinking about the loss of Donald Trump. Let's see who will be an aggressive candidate for the presidency with the results obtained in the state. After Donald Trump has taken over the political arena, America can stop the Ronnie below, we think, in the rack couple sprat scandals in Yaku, cheat the American president for an hour. And with such a rank, but tied with a reputational roar and Trump. And they look, and are ready to turn into an icon, in Russian Zabaganki, and from the received in the States, into Trump's still so-called peace plan, written by the administration of the President of Russia, and not the presidential administration from the received states. J.D. Vance does not want to. In the tim of torture, the yak comes out of the situation still develops. The President of Ukraine Vladimir went to the delegation with the American to discuss the details of the peace plan. And we do not know the presence of the American and the Russian delegation at our consultations on Tilky. And I have such people, and about the consultations between Washington and Kiev, the Kremlin has been kidnapped, you choose, brother, and participate in the consultations, and without notifying his PowerPoints of the plan for discounts. I am publicly represented by the American media and the precinct. To the representatives of the presidential administration from the received states, We can say that the European leaders will also be overgrown with Donald Trump's realistic Namagata. On the document, I will discuss consultations in Geneva. The problem of Donald Trump. I am, as a rule, a kind of vagina process in the American president, focused on the result. The result is overgrown, tied firm, his imperious marnoslavstvo. And with the adoration of Donald Trump, it is no longer in a dose to open the Nobel Prize to the mayor, but in order for the latter and the short list of laureates to die as an American ochilnik in the kitchen gardens. It is necessary that the Russian-Ukrainian guilt ends in our days, otherwise Donald Trump will end again without a bonus. And to that, Donald Trump Shvidkov made the decision to torture about the end of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and what rank will be achieved on the mind with the results. Obviously, a president with a job in the state. You overestimate the tilke of consultations with the European leader, Donald Trump, when hiring firm adjustments and a plan. Donald Trump himself did not leak that the document was signed by the President of Ukraine Vladimir Zelensky and himself. That with Trump, the end of the war will not be delayed until the moment, and the points of the peace plan will not be accepted by the President of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin. Trump surrenders. I do not want, of course, the President of the Russian Federation is still on delaying guilt, and not on, and I clearly reasoned, saying Putin is now meeting the Rada of the Russian Federation, his yak, and the continuation of hostilities. And in those statements, it really looks like all of Trump's intentions are visible. Until that moment, Putin did not see all these samples in the fire. You know, the decisions are overstated absolutely by March, because the real peace process is not started by diplomats. And the misunderstanding of the fact by J.D. Vance will not change anything. And within the fire, you start the mayor not, and here Donald Trump is absolutely right in his Cobb approach in the form of Putin. And discounts of such a distance on Maya. And I'm talking about the position, and we are not the sound and armada of missiles. One can be sure that the Trump initiative is practically a planned fiasco. But in order for a fiasco, it is necessary for Russia to have an American vice president. Agrees on the topic of the channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to the social on the Patreon channel. It helps to develop these resources, the sponsorship function itself.